thank you for being here to engage with our work and to add yet another layer to this amazing city's great cultural, whatever it is, activities. I'm going to be reading quite a few sonnets tonight from a series that I started writing about 2 years ago, and as well as some verse and free verse poems. I began writing sonnets after reading Rilke's Sonnets to Orpheus. And the next poem I'm going to read is the first sonnet that I wrote, and it's called Demi-God. Now, Orpheus was, or is, a demigod. He was, in other words, he was half a god, and he was also half human. And he was able to play music that was so amazing. If I'm remembering my Greek myths, it was so amazing that he could tame wild animals, cause rocks to cry out or move, and maybe almost help him bring his beloved back from the underworld. So the implication here is that the music, why did it have this power? Well, it's because he was a demigod. He was a blend of God and human. And so that God bit is that spark of, it's the source of inspiration, it's the wellspring of creativity, originality. And when it gets blended with our sort of human personality, that's when we find our authentic voice, and that's what's powerful. It's not just the God bit that's important, it's both of them, it's a blend. So what I'm very interested in is the fact that, you know, we often say, well, art and poetry and music, and it's very important, it's important in education, it's important in our culture. Well, why? I don't really know why, it's difficult to say. But it's something to do with the fact that when these things are blended in us, when we let them be blended, we become like a whole system. We already are a whole system, really, but sometimes we're only drawing on 2 cylinders, you know. And as a whole system, we then are going to produce things that reflect that. Not just music and poetry, but nice, well-designed things, coherent political systems, neighborhoods that work, right? Everything that we want out there. We were watching Miss Congeniality recently, you know, World Peace. Everything we want out there is going to be a product of us functioning as whole systems. So that, to me, is what Orpheus is all about. And this seems like a rather long introduction to what's going to be a very short poem, but it is, in fact, also the underlying theme to all the poems I'm going to be reading tonight. And I also think we're kind of embodying this a little bit as well tonight here, the marvelousness of working with Dorothy, the skill and passion with which she brings the voice of the cello, and then, of course, all the voices of those composers that we touch into.
Yes, and we were also touching upon the fact that you're using your left brain just as much as you're using your right brain. Your right brain is all that wonderful creativity we're talking about. But to be a well-rounded person, and that's what I think everybody always wanted to be when you got a liberal arts degree, right? When you got a liberal arts degree, you wanted to be a well-rounded person. I think we've sort of lost touch with that a little bit over maybe the last couple of decades. And I found it very fascinating. I was watching Jill Bolte Taylor talk about her stroke that she had when she was 38. And she actually was, she was a scientist who studied the brain. So she's very curiously watching herself have a stroke. And she's watching her right brain disconnect and her left brain come up, and her left brain disconnect and her right brain come up. And her feeling at the very end of this was, you need to get back in touch with your right brain. That's the part where you just experience and you just enjoy. And I think that sometimes when you hear music, that's what you're hearing. And then I was studying, I was looking and trying to find just the right sort of phrase. And I discovered another study where they'd hooked people up listening to music and stopping and then listening again and stopping. And the most activity occurred in your brain in between the snatches of music. So that's what we're doing here today. But it also sort of says to me, all of us, all music teachers will tell their students. It's the space between the notes that's the most important. So we really found out that that really is true.
So just a little touch of music, and then I'm going to go into Demi-God.
Now I'm bringing the Rimsky-Korsakov out. I'm hoping you hear a little God, whichever God.
To give a name, to name as Demi-God, to personify, is a way to trip thought, so that it knows it doesn't really know. Who is it spoken to? Who truly sought? Part known, part unknown. Who does that describe? Blank, vast, complete gods have caused us sorrow. We are in a time when framing the wide world for others will seem more and more odd, when we will deconstruct this metaphor, visible and invisible, our core, our own identity, sing how of course we are part human, part some other force. And the whole will speak out of this union, this ancient love, alchemical fusion.